Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Women Australia's HR Boardroom with the fabulous Sonia Penna. We're going to be delving into culture, risk and performance this morning. But before we do that, I'll just go through some of our BWA welcome aspects and just set the scene. For those of you who haven't had much to do with BWA, you'd probably like to hear a little bit more about it. And if you've got any questions, stay on after the call or after Sonia's presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So before we start, I'd just like to acknowledge that we live and work on sovereign Indigenous land that's been lived, danced and celebrated on for over 120,000 years, and we pay our respects to all Indigenous elders past, present and emerging, and we celebrate our Indigenous sisters in business. So wherever we might be around Australia, from Brisbane through to Perth and all places in between, I welcome you. BWA's vision is to be a place where everyone's valued and contribute to the greater good. As women in business, we are demonstrating a new way to really collaborate and create a community that's focused on helping women in business achieve their goals and dreams. And we do a lot of that really by co-creating and coming up with ideas as a group. In terms of delivering what we think our members and the wider community can benefit from. So we've had some amazing partners over the years, and this year we're really proud to announce a collaboration with Torrens University Australia. They're Australia's fastest growing university, and we've just announced that collaboration this week. We're really excited to have launched a scholarship for a fully paid master's, postgrad or an undergrad degree or a diploma. And we're really inviting you to spread the word, because that's a fantastic opportunity. We're getting people to pitch and we'll be choosing a worthy recipient of that scholarship. And all things going well, we'll hope to release another scholarship next year. Everyone's a winner because everyone who actually participates will receive a 15% scholarship, whether they get the fully paid one or not. So we're really excited about that collaboration. And in conjunction with Torrens Uni, we're offering a whole bunch of really low cost and free short courses, which are sort of 1 to 2 hour modules with accreditation from the uni. So it's a super collaboration. We also collaborate with Solo Accounts. Donna Vincent is our head of accounts. She is the person who invoices and follows up all our members and looks after all our accounting and bookkeeping. Catco Enterprises, the wonderful Kathy Smith, who has rebuilt our website from scratch and helps us with all our digital and social media. Intact Teams, the wonderful Jessica Schubert from Melbourne, who's joining as a shareholder to BWA and has actually negotiated this amazing collaboration with Torrens University. She's heading up our learning and development program going forward, and she's got some great ideas. Would love to hear from anyone who wants to come on board as one of our premium members and help co-create the program of the future. Three Drops Wines, of course, my favourite drop from the Great Southern of Western Australia, the wonderful Joe Bradbury, who's been so supportive of BWA and organises a lot of our social events, and dying to get back in a plane so that she can visit all the other states so that we can have a bit of fun wine tasting with her. Inspiration Source, Vita Carlino, who has provided a lot of support with offering her site and full catering for her groups that are circled around courageous conversations, and we would love to take that concept interstate as well. So they're our partners at the moment. We're really proud to be partnering with them, and with, of course, all our premium members, including Sonia today. So if you are busy on social, we'd love you to share what we're doing. It's really around connecting and engaging with women in business across all levels of business, whether or not they're executives, women on boards, professionals, business owners. We really want this to be a place that is fully engaging, where we own what it is that we do, that we raise the issues that we believe are important to be raised. This week we also released our Buzz magazine. Jump onto our website, There's a little tab at the top. It's amazing. Our Buzz magazine features so many of our premium members, and it gives you a real insight into the depth and the quality of women in our collective. They're really phenomenal women. So that's our website there, businesswomenaustralia.com.au. We have a company page on LinkedIn. We'd love you to like it and follow us. We've got a free group to join where you can share your news, share articles you've read, any research that you've come across, any events, discounts, anything you'd like to promote to other women in business in Australia. That's our gift to the community. They can jump on there and own that place. We have a very, very popular Facebook page, and we have a closed members group for our classic and our premium level members. We've got a Twitter handle and an Instagram. The majority of the hashtags we use are hashtag BWA events and hashtag BWA leaders. So they're also good ones to follow. That's for those of you who are social. Lots coming up. We've just had the Courageous Conversations last week and the Peel Chapter Brainstorm and Q&A with the digital marketer online this week. And of course, today's Business of Culture, Risk and Performance with Sonia. So we've got another webinar coming up on the 28th of July, Cultures of Excellence. We're looking at employee share schemes, and we're really going to delve into how they're used to really motivate and to retain your key people, your star performers. We're doing bookkeeping for sole traders with Donna Vincent online, and that is on the 3rd of August. Lucky Perth, we're doing some wine tasting on the 6th of August with Joe Bradbury. And then back online with the wonderful Bev Ryan, who is based in Brisbane, and she's going to be sharing her insights and her experiences and why we should all be considering writing a book for business. She coaches predominantly women, but she coaches amazing people getting their books published independently. She's definitely worth having a listen to. So I hope after today we see more of you, and we would love to hear what your thoughts are around collaborating with BWA. We have recorded this session. If there is anything that you want to share and you don't want it kept in the recording, stay on afterwards and just let me know to delete that out, and I will. Otherwise, we will be making this available for our members, who many of them couldn't make it on today, but they will go into our resources section and watch that. And of course, as a premium member, Sonia can also take this recording and share it with her networks and on her website if she wishes. So here are my contact details, lynn@businesswomenaustralia.com.au. I'd love to have a chat to you. I'd love to hear ideas around what this collective can do to help you raise the issues in your world, connect you with the right people, raise your profile, work with you, or just be able to have some fun with you, which is one of the most important parts of BWAs. We actually really do love having a lot of fun together. So thanks for being here. I will hand over to Sonia, and I would really, first of all, like to say thank you to Sonia. She's been with BWA right from the early stages of Business Women Australia. When we went over to Brisbane, she was there with our discovery group, giving us some ideas about what she thought would be needed. And she has been really instrumental as a leader, shaping Business Women Australia and what we're all about. Her insights from a high-level leadership perspective and coming from her expertise with incredible brands and organisations has really been a massive benefit to us. And I really thank you, Sonia. So over to you for the Business of Culture, Risk and Performance. I will stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours.
Great, thank you so much, Lynn. And welcome Leah, Nicole and Tuskeen. It's an intimate group, so this will go really well because the discussion will probably be a lot more free-flowing when we have a more intimate group. So before I jump into my presentation, Leah, Nicole and Tuskeen, it'd be great to just hear from you and say hello and just what you're hoping that you'll get out of today. So we've got time to do it, to hone in on anything specific that you're looking for. Leah, if we could start with you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'll take myself off off non-video for the moment and share. I guess for today, we are going through quite a difficult time in our organisation with a number of redundancies at present. It's been a very tough time for the business, and I'm really conscious of for those that continue on within our organisation about really keeping that culture and sort of keeping everybody, motivated and understanding what's happening. I think it's such a difficult time that everybody's in at the moment. So I'd love some inspiration and maybe some thoughts and ideas around how we can improve on culture.
Well, and what's the challenge overall in your sector or industry? What do you think is a key challenge for you?
The key challenge, probably the most difficult for us, is our organisation with Volvo Group Australia has, we're doing quite well in terms of sales and revenue and things like that, but obviously with what's happened globally, our parent organisation is in Sweden, so Europe has been quite heavily hit. So it's very difficult for us when we see a local market that's doing quite well, but our parent company is sort of saying, well, these are the types of things that we need to do going forward in terms of, cost cutting and but just about keeping people motivated, I think, has been the hardest thing, because everyone's trying to do the right thing. And I think everybody's been really quite severely hit by COVID as well. So, and I think everyone's sort of lucky to have their jobs and feel lucky, but also feel a little bit guilty in other respects as well. So that's probably the key challenges for us right now.
Yeah, and they're real, right? They're so
yes.
real. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Leah.
Thanks.
Nicole.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole. I'm over in Western Australia in Bunbury, so I don't know if I'm quite a distance away from everybody else. I really like these sort of sessions just because I run the HR area on my own, so it's good to kind of touch base with other people and see what are going on in other organisations and see if similar things are happening or just new ideas and fresh ideas that maybe I haven't trialled before.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, yes, so it's just the scale is so wide and varied when to say, okay, what's happening out there? What are the latest trends, and is it valid in my work context or the business I'm in? So how do we size it to fit when you do get this information and you think, well, how can I use it to our advantage? So hopefully you'll get some tips out of today's presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great. Thank you.
Taskeen, long time.
Long time. Hi, everybody. I am in Brisbane. I am in the legal sector, and for me today, I'm hoping to hear from you, Sonia, about what other industries are doing. Our firm has taken, I guess, a slightly uncharacteristic view of working within the pandemic, in that most of our members of our firm have continued to attend the office, and I guess it's a little bit of inflexibility within our organisation. So I'm very interested to find out what other people are doing, because there are certainly a lot of members within our organisation, and I think other law firms, that are saying, well, in light of the practices that we've seen with COVID, from working from home, how can we incorporate that, if we can, within the office? Because I'm sure it can be done. We're just not seeing it within our workplace. So I'd like to hear if that is happening across the board, and if so, any examples you could give.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Definitely talk about quite a few examples. And I've spoken to a few law firms, and it's really interesting the different tacks they've taken with their business, and especially how they've chosen to transition to the online professional services world and what that looks like. I was intrigued on how they got people to change and shift their mindset on how advice is provided and delivered. So I'll touch on that a little bit later in the presentation. There's no one size fits all. That's one thing that I've noticed across industry. And if you've got a global parent company, a lot of it is determined by their decisions. If you're a local company, you probably have a lot more influence in the shape and direction of the workforce and the business. So there are so many different variables. And today what I'll do is just hone in on the key ones that seem to be making some traction across different industries, if that's useful.
Fantastic.
Right. Well, I'll share my screen, and anytime, everyone, if you would like to ask a question or share a thought or an idea, or ask one of the team, other participants about their views, please feel free to do so. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. Yay. That's fantastic. So I'll try and see if we can, we can do that. So welcome today. So it's on the business of culture, risk and performance. Hot off the press this week, and I was just, I guess, quite fortuitous, there was some really good global research around what organisations are doing around with capability, performance and remuneration reward. Getting that global insight is really interesting because it draws some really good questions that we can then reframe for our own business, in our own sector, in our own local area as well. So just a little bit about me. I've worked with predominantly in the retail hospitality industry, worked in financial services, defence contracting as well. And the last 3 years I've been consulting in my own business, which has been fantastic from a networking perspective, getting to work in different industries from law firms through to engineering and childcare, which I wouldn't have really had the opportunity to in a corporate role because you're dedicated to that organisation. The insights that you get working with those different businesses really helps me to kind of draw parallels and share, what's working and what's not working. And there's so much that we can learn across industries that I think now is a time to really hone in on that, to say what are other people doing and how that could be of benefit to us, and how can we share that and collaborate and come up with some different ideas or challenge the thinking. So there was a quote, I'm not sure if you heard it on LinkedIn or Facebook. It says, we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat, which means that yes, we may be in the COVID storm and the economic storm and the social impact storm, but how we are weathering it really depends on which industry we're in, how well it's funded, who are the people making the decisions. All of those elements really make a difference. So what's working in one boat may not necessarily be working in another. So one size does not fit all. And the response to what needs to change in the new normal is really about being business specific. So today's presentation is not to give you all the answers, but really to explore what's different, why, and how businesses are responding to the new challenges. So hot off the press, this was just distributed this week. Simon Kennedy is part of Aon Partners and Head of Solutions, and the recent research that they've done, global research, is come up with this quote, and I've sort of grabbed that particular one because I thought it was really interesting from a remuneration perspective and performance. Setting goals for short-term and long-term incentives for 2021 and beyond will be extremely challenging given the uncertain recovery timeframe. For most companies, the performance metrics and indeed the design in terms of incentives may need to be a complete rethink. So early engagement with investors in this regard will be vital. So and then we go on with Megan Motto, who's the CEO of the Governance Institute of Australia. And she says, with the experience and research, that the economic fallout of COVID-19 is impacting boardrooms across Australia, and many businesses are taking drastic measures. As Leah, you've been experiencing, with pay cuts or layoffs, there's clearly no one size fits all solution when it comes to managing the impacts of it. Now, why do I talk about this, and why do I draw this from a board or an executive level? The tone from the top absolutely matters. So those decisions that are made at that board level or that business level, or if it's a business ownership level, they do flow through the rest of the organisation. So then the HR department or the business leaders, the CEOs of those organizations, then need to think, well, if this is what's happening at the board level, executive level, business owner level, what does that mean for the rest of the organization? Now, we don't have anyone from government here, so it makes it a little bit different because that's a whole different type of conversation. So I'll steer clear of the government sector in today's conversation, if that works well for you. So how are businesses reorientating their approach to capability, performance and reward? Have you, Leah, have you, any of you looked at, you know, what's got to be different with your people capability and skills in your organisation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably key. I think what our organisation did was really encouraged everyone to look at the way we were working. And I think this whole working from home situation really made everyone reassess and understand what's important about the culture as well within the organisation. I think to some respects, sometimes it feels that, you know, if you need to be seen in order to be, you know, that you're doing work, whereas I think everybody then realised that's not actually the case. It's about, you know, and for myself in particular, I actually work better at home. I don't have children or any distractions at home. So for me, I actually work a lot better and I get a lot more done in comparison to being in the office. I think that sort of reassessing people's roles and how they work within our organisation was key.
And when you're reassessing the roles, did the question around, well, how do we measure how effective performance, did that come
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you know, I think we've changed the way that you know, what is important in that respect. You know, is it, does it come down to the bottom line? Is it actually how effective we are? Is it a shorter working time? You know, can we do things more efficiently? You know, I think a lot of the challenges we have, we're quite a traditional organisation based on a European type culture. So I think sometimes it has been that this is just the way we do things. But I think really challenging the business and the business leaders, we've really been able to achieve some great efficiencies over this period.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a combination of tactical things that you do from a daily level, but also that link between what is going to mean overall.
Absolutely, yes, that's so true.
Okay, great. Taskeen, what about you within your practice around capability and performance? Has that shifted, or have people just, you know, tightened the deck, so to speak?
Initially, there was a real tightening of the screws, and I think what you said before, Leah, in terms of the approach has always been quite a traditional approach in law. You know, we're steeped in culture and tradition as a practice. So there was a real mind shift from the powers that be above that went, well, no, we can't have people working from home. How is that going to work? Because it's never happened. And in saying that, obviously it hasn't happened for a lot of industries, but what we have seen is that giving people a little bit more flexibility, and certainly myself as well, I did 3 months in the lockdown with 2 young children. And in the midst of that, I had a 4-day trial in the family court. So I was getting up at, you know, for example, 4:30 in the morning, working till 7, and then from 7 till 12, it was school time and kid time. And then, you know, I'd work again in the afternoon, and then afternoon time with the family and the kids, they'd go to sleep, and then I'd work again at night. And had you asked me 4 months prior, could I have done that? I would have said absolutely not. That's not a way to work, but it did work. And then looking at everyone's KPIs, etc., people were, myself included, able to meet our respective goals.
It's a lot, though. Do you think that's sustainable, though?
Oh, look, I don't think I don't think I could manage it for a year, but I certainly saw it as a short-term plan, and that helped me to get through it. Yeah, I really don't know the answer as to how long I could have sustained working in that manner.
It's speaking to a number of parents, it's I guess the common theme that came through was we can't be in two places at once. You know, when we go to work or we're in another location, you can actually focus your world in that bubble and you're totally dedicated to that. But trying to juggle different facets of your life in the same time frame is hard. And I don't think we're designed that way either. That attention and focus. But yes, I think it was short-term pain for the long-term benefit of us all. Nicole, how about you?
Yeah, so very similar to what Leah and Tuskina said, is we've come from a very traditional workplace environment. So the whole working from home thing was a very new concept for where I work. And again, it proved really well that it worked really well. It was quite interesting that on site we had managers that sit in offices next door to each other, but when we all had to be working from home, it was a very interesting that we found that people were actually a lot more, we could contact them a lot easier through the online Teams forums and that, and from people sitting right next door to each other in an office. So that was really good, and we're in the process now of I've got some flexible work arrangement policies that are drafted that we want to continue offering those flexibilities for people moving forward. And then from our operational perspective, from a financial view, we had to put a lot of our external training on hold, which will probably stay that way for the rest of the year. But we've got a bit of a new focus where we kind of identified that we really need to do some more formalised cross-training within our different department areas, because we've got, for example, one team that their skill level, we can't draw other people from other areas of business. And if all of them were to get COVID, if we were to get a second wave, we'd actually be in a lot of trouble in that particular area of business. So it's really about cross-skilling against the different operational areas, which is upskilling the employees, which is a benefit to them. And that's also supporting our business operations as well.
Yeah, it's amazing, you know, what organisations and businesses, we can't cross-skill, or we don't have the time to do that. But when faced in a crisis, they're kind of saying, well, the risk of not doing it far outweighs the investment that's needed.
Yes.
So it's really, I really think it's forced the hand of many businesses to let go of what they think worked for many years. So what's worked before doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work going forward.
Yes.
And people's preferences have changed.
Absolutely.
In an office doesn't mean they're any more productive or less productive than if they're at home. But I think a lot of people have said that they've had to be more productive now that they're at home because they're juggling more things.
Yes, that's true.
And a number of people have said, I don't want to be the next person, cab off the rank with redundancy. I just want to make sure that I am available all the time. And it's interesting that comment is also made. It's kind of like, I'm really going to be more present now because, I know that my organisation is going to be making people redundant. And there's a real disconnect, because when organisations look at redundancy, especially large ones, they kind of take some of the social impact, but really it's a commercial one. So they'll go, right, I know it's going to be tough, and we'll put all these measures to help with their well-being and support networks and as much as we can, but we need to let them go. But at an individual level, you'll think, if I work harder and longer and I'm more visible, then they won't let me go. But that's not necessarily been the experience of many people. But yeah, so it is. So it's quite tactical by the sounds of things, and we're all finding our way. Well, with today, the capability where I'm going to hone in on is many organisations are looking at human versus technology, and the whole capability around digital adoption, the behaviours that sit around that, and the expectations that sit around that. So working with teams, how do we automate many of the things that we said we didn't, we can have a human doing. Organisations have already said, okay, we're going to fast track the investment or the time to do that. I was talking to a CEO of one of Australia's largest IT supply chain companies, and he said he's been inundated with calls from other CEOs of non-tech companies of how they can bring their organisation quicker online and to engage their workforce so they're performing even better than before to try and capture all the business leads as possible. So it was interesting listening to his discussion, saying now, you know, that there's an urgency on CEOs to adopt more of a technological focus around business. Leadership in uncertain times has come up as is another area that's come up really strongly with capability. And then innovation in how people are growing workforce capability. So what's happened now, or what the trends that are now happening, is that it's no longer about upskilling and cross-skilling. That's almost a given, and it's an expectation. And so now the preferences are now looking towards opportunity. So you can upskill me, you can cross-skill me, but where's the mutual benefit? I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Performance being redefined, and then reward. People, there's an increasing demand, and you probably would have seen in the news, where people want to know how remuneration, recognition and what reward schemes are working at all levels of the organisation. And people want to have the transparency, and they want to be involved in shaping what that looks like. So to explore this question a little bit more around the approach to capability, performance and reward, I want to just delve into the shifts that are happening in today's work environment. Clearly, we've all talked about there are changes in the way work is done. So that's no surprise. We know that we're working from home. We know that people are doing projects from home, large scale projects. They're now shifting where they're doing like a rotation into the office, but ultimately the flow of work continues irrespective of which location that work is done. So this brings to the next point of evolving expectations of the workforce. If I'm still serving my clients, if I'm still working on my projects, if I'm just still doing site visits, then I can do that no matter where I'm at. And yes, you can see me, but you can see me in person, you can see me online, or you can see me through the work that I've delivered. So there are evolving expectations of the workforce, which is actually breaking those paradigms. You may have also seen the growing focus on organisations becoming more social enterprises. Have you heard much of that happening? Tuskeen, Leah, Nicole, about your business being more of a social enterprise?
No, I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
No, not from our perspective, no.
Yes.
No, same here.
Yeah, so it's interesting. This has been, it's one of those undercurrents that's now coming out a lot stronger. And basically it's about organisations that are looking to not only survive and maximise their purpose for living or existing, but also what's the social and environmental well-being that they're contributing to society. What are they doing to make it a better place? And this actually links into the expectations of the workforce. There is more of a, well, what am I here? What am I doing? Is it adding value? Is it making the world a better place? Is it making my community a better place? Is it making the customers and clients that we serve happier and better for what we're doing? So there seems to be a growing focus on meaning and motivation when people can see the connections at that community, social, global level.
Sonia, I wonder if that's a little bit of an overhang, obviously, from the studies that are being done around this next generation and the social license to operate and their strong voice. What I'm finding, though, in the short-term response to the COVID pandemic is that organisations who were discussing this prior to the pandemic have actually said, right now, we've got to go into survival mode. We've got to look at our core business. We've just got to survive and focus on delivering to our current clients so that we hold on in order to be able to adopt a more social enterprise focus in the future. But right now they're actually feeling that it's almost still a luxury to be thinking about those wider things. And in actual fact, a lot of the younger people who actually are demanding that are not quite in those shareholder equity roles yet. And a lot of them are losing their jobs because they were the younger, less experienced ones in the organisation. So it's a really interesting hiccup to that particular philosophical approach that I think organisations were heading in, and it'll be interesting to see, you know, in the next body of research whether or not it's actually drops down a little bit in importance, or whether or not because of the health crisis, because of the need to be sustainable as a country, buying Australian, increasing our local manufacturing, thinking about our supply chains and where things are coming from, it still might dribble closer to the top. So interesting times on that one.
Well, it's a really good, that's a really good point that you raised there, Lynn. If we look at examples, there will be organisations that we've got to see it as a luxury, and then there are other organisations that are flourishing or they've pivoted. So let's look at, have you seen the latest newsreels on the toilet company Who Gives a Crap? Has anybody seen their latest post?
Yeah, well, we actually, during the COVID pandemic, we'd known about that organisation for years, but we finally got around to getting online and getting their monthly deliveries. So they've gone crazy.
Yeah.
They have. So they've donated a significant amount of their profits to charity because they're bumper profits. So they wanted to say, we're not here to capitalise, you know, we didn't expect to have this success, so we now wanted to share this success, and so we're sharing our profits with charity. So that was an interesting connection to go, look, we're still here for the community and for the health of the environment and the well-being of the environment. So I thought it was a really interesting one. The other ones that I talked about at the last episode was the gin manufacturers, you know, the small distilleries, how they moved into making hand sanitizers. So they became socially relevant, as well as, you know, okay, people may not be buying as much alcohol, or there won't be as much of a demand. Where is the demand going to be, and how do we help society? And in that scenario, they're actually making hand sanitizers. So it's really interesting, the responses. It's such a cross section, but I do see where that momentum is a hang up. You know, part of, I guess, the movement of the next generation. But it's becoming more and more of a topical and important for people when they say they want to be working with an organisation. What is a social impact? So talking about that. But it is still a key theme. And also the greater transparency in remuneration, reward and recognition practices. People want to know. And you can see it in the news almost, you know, every other week around what, you know, Qantas CEO has said they won't get paid for 3 months. They won't say the rest of it, that they still have lots and lots of shares in the company. You know, what's happening with low income workers? Should we be paying bonuses? Shouldn't we be paying bonuses? Is there equity? And this is what society are looking at. As an organisation, do we have equity in our reward, in our recognition practices, and how do they need to change? With the research that has been recently released this week, it was by Deloitte, and they said that there are around the benefits and remuneration strategies, or how to measure performance and reward in the new world of work. They're saying that a lot more has to do with human-centered design, and not so much about the task-orientated way, not so much about the framework. It's more about how you go about rethinking your whole recognition reward structures. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective taken from the research that they have done, to say it's not just about the how, it's not just about the what you're doing, but it's how you're involving people in it. And that's part of what makes organisations more resilient in navigating the uncertainty going ahead, getting that involvement. But I'll talk about that a little bit more now. So there are five design principles that Deloitte have come out of the research from them with navigating through uncertainty. So the 5 principles: purpose and meaning, transparency and openness, ethics and fairness, growth and passion, collaboration and relationships. So if you're able to use these human-centered behaviours and aligning that with the goals of your organisation, it doesn't matter if they're short-term or longer-term, they're saying that it has this as a greater impact, and your culture of your organisation will feel a lot more involved. So I'll go through them individually. And it'll be interesting to hear perhaps the examples that you're already using in your business, or maybe how you think it might be useful in your context. So the first one is purpose and meaning. I guess it's not such a surprise. We all want purpose and meaning in our work, but there's a real sense of that even though that might be change, people still want to feel like that they belong to the organization. And I feel like I belong when I'm contributing. How are you showing me that you value what I contribute to the organization? How do I get a sense of belonging and connection? How does that work when you don't see me every day in the office? What are the ways that we can still generate that activity in a meaningful way? The other one is transparency in process. Normally what happens is it's like, this is what we're doing, this is the approach, but really getting people to provide a feedback loop in sharing information around how they think the reward and compensation strategy is working. Recognition is a big one. I was talking to a insurance company, super company, and they try and do their recognition through Microsoft Office Teams. And because they work on very different projects, it seems to be whoever's got the biggest project gets the biggest voice, or whoever has the biggest client gets the biggest voice or greater accolades. It's a real conscious effort to say, what parts of the organization, big and small, contributions, big and small. So how do we get that feedback loop in? Again, that impacts the culture and that sense of belonging. Ethics and fairness was a really big theme with the design principles, and it was adopting a process of flex for reward with job changes. So as organizations are changing, you might be asked to take on a bit more work or different work that you've not done before. And people want to feel like, yeah, I'm happy to do that and it's great for my growth. But they also think, well, how do I get compensated for this? And it may not be top of the conversation and they may not want to bring it up, but it seems to be, it is important if I think there's disparities across the organisation. So I'm taking on more work, but am I being recognised or rewarded for that in proportionately? So looking at when reframing the organisation or looking at job roles and looking at performance and measuring performance, how is the reward structure flexing so it's not so hard-coded anymore? It's allowing a bit of, it will be subjectivity, but saying, okay, we've got less people, we've got a different team, how do we want to reward and recognise them? So having a flex approach. I'm just going to stop there for a minute. What are your thoughts so far on those 3 design principles?
I really love those. When I came in with the team for businesswomen, we actually identified some key aspects of what our organisation was going to look like and what was important to us, and perhaps a little bit different words, but these were the sorts of conversations we were having around having a really strong purpose and getting being able to attract women that share that purpose, being very open and transparent with everything that we're doing, our wins, our losses, the things that we're stuffing up is just as important to share as much as the things that we're succeeding in. All around ethics and fairness, giving everyone the opportunity to have a go, being passionate and focusing on growth as a part of our design principle was really was around what are the things that really light our fires and what do we really want to be doing and not what should we be doing. So that was quite, I'm loving these design principles, and of course everything's built on collaboration with what we do. So we're like, we wanted to be able to showcase what a social enterprise could look like that was co-created and what the true meaning of co-creation and collaboration was, and how meaningful relationships are really built by that, rather than being an events or networking association. These were the principles around the design of this business that, I'm just loving this. And whenever I talk to my clients about what we're learning in Business Women Australia as a model, they're really interested in it and starting to embrace a lot of more of this thinking in their own organisations, in the strategy workshops that I facilitate for them. So I'm definitely going to have a look at that. That was a Deloitte study, was it?
It's a Deloitte. I can share that paper with you as well. It goes into way more detail. I took out and adapted, the core things that I thought would be useful for us today. But absolutely happy to share that. With growth and passion that you're talking about there, Lynn, it's around rewarding and being recognised for that cross-skilling, upskilling, and being able to apply that. People like to still get that. So from a culture point of view, people feel valued and connected, but they also want to be recognised when they develop new skills. If you've got award-covered employees, they're motivated because sometimes they can jump a category, they can go up a category and get into a different pay bracket. But there are different motivators there. With the research, they've said that growth and passion needs to be continually cultivated. Even if your business is going through change, it actually helps to keep that connectivity there. Collaboration and relationships. Now, this was an interesting one. It's not just about the organisation having the awards or annual ceremonies or monthly employee of the month. They talked about more of it being at a local level with your immediate teams, as having that really good sense of, okay, I'm getting rewarded at a team level by my peers. Yes, I'm also recognised by other leaders, but it seems to be around setting goals and motivating it. Leaders want to have that influence and they want to shape it specific to their team and what they do in the organisation for their clients or for their customers. So they want it to be in their hands as opposed to another department handling it for them. Curious to know from, Tuskeen or Nicole, Leah, to see, with that reward at team level, what does that look like for you today?
Yeah, this has been a really big focus area for us. We've just come off a recent culture survey, which we've just closed out, and I'm just going through a lot of that data, and a lot of it is coming back, and it's probably an area that we have lacked in terms of a reward and recognition, and it's something that it's a lot of the employees are crying out, like, what can we do more of, what do they want to see? And it is something that is a big key focus for us for the next 12 months.
Okay, great. So is it more when you said you got the results of the survey, and I find this fascinating because I'm working with different organisations. Sometimes individuals can get caught up on gym memberships and I don't know, getting vouchers or petrol cards, rather than thinking about the purpose of having the reward scheme there. With your data, is it about what they're looking for in rewards as opposed to, I guess, the material connections?
It's a little bit of both. There is some commentary around they don't feel valued. I guess we're not showing our appreciation and we're not supporting when things are doing well. We're more kind of picking on the things that are going wrong, as well as they want more of a recognition from a social perspective. So they want the social barbecues, they want that sort of stuff where they're getting a bit more engagement and connectivity with their team rather than just you literally come to work and leave.
Right.
But yeah, a couple of points to that.
So that's interesting, isn't it? Because again, that goes back to that human nature for us to want to feel connected, want to feel that we belong and that we're part of the team.
Yes,
that's it. That because those activities are about that feeling of belonging. It could be 10-pin bowling. It could be playing online poker. It's that sense of belonging, right? And this is I find it really interesting because you'll have organisations and vendors going, come to Reward Gateway. We've got 10,003 things for you to choose from. But if you really look at it, it's quite simplistic what makes us feel valued. And it's not necessarily all the whistles and bells. So I encourage you to have, when you workshop it through and you design your reward scheme, I'd be really curious to find out what you come up with that, involves that whole sense of belonging and community.
Yeah.
Sonia, it's Leah here. I just thought I'd mention as well, which we're finding within the organisation, and I think it's also about millennials, and then obviously with Gen Z, I think, coming up next. But what we're finding is it's not even about the things or the items, and in fact, it's not even about pay rises. In some respects, it's about feeling a sense of belonging at work. But I've found it's even around job title. And certainly some of the millennials that I work with have got the impression that they're going, I recently lost a member of my team. It's a bit of a funny story, but he's 21, so it was very new within the workforce, but had decided that because he wants to be CEO by 30, this wasn't quite happening quick enough for him. Which it's funny in itself when we think about how long our careers go for and what we do. But I think it's a perfect example of what this generation, and I think the upcoming generation, are looking for as well. I think they're looking for a sense of place and belonging, but it's also about feeling valued and having their titles reflecting that as well. We're also finding that the reward and recognition is more around, we're seeing it more around diversity and inclusion, and also it's a generation where they don't want to see people being excluded, and so I think that that's some really exciting stuff that's happening within our organisation. We're sort of trying to do some work around more social and community ventures, and giving days off for people to go and maybe cook for Ronald McDonald House, or go and paint a home, or do some work in a shelter. Things like that, I think, are probably going to be more important for this coming generation.
Yeah, that there's a real currency to that, isn't there? There's that it's a different value of currency. Being able to have that time to contribute.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's interesting again. So I thought those 5 key themes and design principles, the way that I would approach, and if I was working with a team, if you've got culture results coming through or your business model has changed, is actually to kind of use this as a temperature gauge to go, is it hitting each one of these areas? Because if it's not, we're probably missing something. It's not about jumping to the solution, but really designing something that's specific for your business, for your team, and for why you exist. So they're really good points to reference, I find. And a lot of my work is around human-centered design and design thinking, and it seems to stick with a lot more people. When I leave those teams and we go and we talk, let's say if we're talking about reward and recognition, then they seem to walk away owning it, and they want to do more with it. And then they come back with even more good stuff about what they're doing and what they're accomplishing. So they're not waiting for someone else to finish it off. They're the ones that actually want to take it on board. And I had that experience at the bank that I worked at Credit Union Australia. If we talk about sense of belonging, you think it's a mutual bank. They do all sorts of great things there. But at the bank, what we found was that we really didn't understand the profile of employees at the bank, and what were really their drivers and motivators. So I said to the team, we really need to baseline what the drivers and motivators are, and who we're profiling. And these amazing key themes came out, which the executive team or a little steering committee would never have come up with if we hadn't have done that. And from that, we had these people who were just advocates for the causes that they wanted to lead. And they had this amazing following by a number of different segments of the organisation. So again, that whole concept of one size doesn't fit all, that different people are motivated and driven and interested in different things. But in that group, there were definitely core themes, core focuses that they wanted to take on board. And from that, then a committee was established, of course, but first what was important was understanding the motivators and drivers of the workforce. And it wasn't gender specific, it wasn't age specific, it transcended all of that. So typically when people looked at demographics about understanding the workforce, they kind of like do age, go through the whole thing. This was on preferences, this was on behaviours, this was on perceptions. It was measuring different things that I think we've got we came to a place that provided for a lot richer sense of purpose, and people could connect with it. Happy to talk about it more if anybody's interested after the session today. Does anybody have any other comments want to share on those design principles? Or if not, let me just then go, well, when we're talking about an organisation with culture, capability and performance, people say, well, how do we manage the risk around it? This is non-stop. This doesn't ever change. And there is risk, but in a positive way. So how do you measure, how do you kind of maintain that momentum? And I wanted to share with you, these are, if you're going to kind of like distill it down, I just told you about my experience with CUA, but the profile, profile the core capabilities of the organisation in the new environment. What does that actually look like? You will hear to say, well, what does it look like from an online point of view, a remote point of view? What does it mean for our industry? What's coming out? So what are the core capabilities? And yes, you'll segment it through the organisation. So you've got specialty, you've got capability from a tech level, but also you've got leadership core capabilities. This is not a shopping list of things. You really distill it down. So also with managing risk is determine how performance will be measured then when you're reprofiling the organisation or reprofiling the capabilities of your organisation. The other strong piece of managing risk too and getting that transparency is creating a voice of the employee. Are you happy with the channels in the organisation to pulse check, to measure what's working and what's not working, to really get, I guess, the raw issues and concern and to generate new thinking and ideas? That voice of the employee is just as important as the voice of the customer. With managing the risk, you will get some really good and valuable information, even concerns. So I had one organisation that thought that working from home was their biggest concern, but it wasn't. What came out was when they did this pulse survey was they were worried about the commute from one location to another. That was the biggest concern. What was in place for transport? What was in place from an external and internal point of view? So it's really interesting that people in decision-making positions will think one way, but until they get the real data and the voice of the employee coming through, they really don't know. So they could be investing a lot of time and effort and then missing the mark in keeping their workforce engaged and managing the risk. When you're doing all of that, then that will feed into your evaluating whether your remuneration reward recognition programs are aligned to new ways of working. When we talk about new ways of working, it's more than just about working from home. This is about really breaking down, what are the values, what are the protocols for decision making? How are we going to handle conflict in the, when a conflict arises? How do we determine priorities? How do we want to recognize the work that we want to do around here? So when we talk about ways of working, there are actually 9 elements of it. And it's not just about physical locality. It's about the dynamic of how we're going to work together in the different work environments that we currently have. So the remuneration and reward program, does remuneration change? And that will actually depend on the industry that you're in. And I'm happy to talk about that, I guess, more on a one-on-one specific, industry specific, because you might have contract, you might have independent contractors, you might have award covered employees. You might have people that are on a risk type of contract, risk reward type of contract. Does that really make sense now in the new environment if you're trying to sustain your business or grow your business in that way? I'll take this time now to kind of tap into tap into you to say, with managing risk, do you see how that is or isn't working for you today? Taskeen, I'm interested in the law firm side.
I'm so sorry to be rude, but somebody is trying to get my attention in the background. I haven't closed the door. I'll have to join in another 5 minutes, so please excuse me.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Sorry.
Leah or Nicole, how do you see this in managing risk?
I think it's going to be a bit of a work in progress, to be honest. I think we're all reassessing at the moment how we do this going forward. I think we had a very clear process before, and obviously, given we're in the manufacturing industry as well, health, safety and risk is our key component of what we do. But now it's more about, the managing people and how we actually do that. So for us, it's a little bit of a work in progress, to be honest. And I'm very keen to learn and understand more about what other industries are doing and how they're changing as well.
Yeah, I guess they're responding with these, with managing risk, is saying they're responding by doing these things. So they're getting their intel by doing these things.
Right, I see. Yeah.
Yes. So because one size doesn't fit all, and if you're in manufacturing, what's different with core capabilities in the new environment from a leadership perspective and a technology perspective? Then saying, well, if our core capabilities have changed or altered, how is performance going to be measured? Because our workforce profile is different and the structure of how we work is different. So these are kind of like your way of getting to that information.
Yeah, I like the understand with creating here the voice of the employee and sort of looking at measuring what's working and emerging issues. I think that's really key, because when we're not in front of our people and sort of having that conversation, I think how we do that's going to be really key and important for moving forward.
Absolutely. So do you want to, if you feel comfortable, let's talk about that a little bit. So you're in manufacturing. How do people, so if you think about, people talk about things around the water cooler.
Yeah.
What are the ways in which, what are the channels in which in your business, you get the voice or you hear what employees are talking about?
Yeah, it's interesting because we essentially have two workforces. So we have our blue collar workforce and our white collar workforce. White collar is somewhat easier in the sense that everybody has mobile, laptop, we're able to communicate and communication goes quite easily. We run a very similar system. It's called a lean management system, which is very similar to Toyota. So it's a Japanese-based system. So we have things like Gemba walks, which is where the team meets up in the morning. They look at the board, look what they have to do today, what they have to achieve, and everyone chats. Well, that's actually stopped right now, given social distancing. So we're actually looking, from a real estate perspective, I'm looking at how can we allow them to get back to this, to be able to do it in a safe manner, but they really need that contact back again. And it's quite hard with blue collar as well, because they're almost working on top of each other building a truck, but then when they go for lunch we make them sit 1.5 meters away from each other because that's regulation in the cafeteria. So
let's look at the behaviours. When they're sitting 1.5 meters away from each other, what are they doing?
Well, they think it's hilarious. They're like, we're chatting. It's eating and chatting and sort of, talking about their weekend or what they're planning to do. But they think it's hilarious because they're working so closely together. And we sort of have to quite often explain that, look, it may seem silly, but these are government regulations we all have to abide by. And so it's quite interesting, but the culture of, as blue collar workers, the culture of them sort of being quite close together and really interacting with each other, that's been most difficult. And our communication, we've realised, because most of the blue collars don't have access to the computer or phones, we're trying to think of new ways that we can keep them in the loop with our business. So we've started newsletters that we actually hand out and have them available. We're putting messages on screens throughout the factory as well, and all of our general information, so about how we can keep them engaged and not feeling like they're a different part of our business. So it's an interesting way of working, because we essentially do have two workforces.
Yes, exactly. So again, it's that just you sharing that draws a picture, right? And it's saying, okay, what are the ways that they like to talk? So depending on what they feel comfortable with, organisations are, posting 30 seconds of the funniest thing that happened to me today.
Yeah.
You know, some goofy things that they're 30 seconds long, or if it's about safety leadership, it's around, you know, what am I proud of today? And that it's almost like these, you know, Insta feeds. And I don't know on your blue collar workforce, you know, whether they like to go on there to their phone and then there's a Facebook page or a Insta feed. I don't think they'd be on Snapchat, or maybe some of them would. But, you know, what are the ways that social media is part of your channel? And that's where it's different, because a lot, you know, you just have to sit at a bus stop if you're at a bus stop, or be in a supermarket while people are waiting to be served, or, you know, and they're on their phones straight away, and people are ready to capture those snippets of information. So what we're finding is that social media is used correctly is a really useful channel to try and get the voice of the employee. The other
very
part
true.
of it is Microsoft Office Teams is really popular, and with that what they call cross-pollination, so what's happening in the field, what's happening on the front line, to feel that connection, you know, when they've completed a project, or they've made a new relationship, being able to share that with the white collar workers that may, you know, most of the time they wouldn't be on site, or they wouldn't be with that client or that customer.
Yes, that's right.
What you're working on. So I think I would encourage you to look at, you know, what are the ways in which you could use social media channel as for a voice of the employee, or even using your intranet, whatever you have in place if you don't already have it. That's the way. They're little things, but they make a big difference.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, good points. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One of my clients did a really great, made a temporary role, a people and culture specialist, that one of her key things was to check in with all the employees, just to over, you know, certainly during the lockdown, and that's actually, they're looking at making that a permanent role now, because what it did was it identified that having someone that wasn't necessarily the HR team, but this person that was like a trusted internal person, checking in on them, checking in on their health and well-being, all that sort of stuff. She was then able to give some really good sort of barometer and temperature check type feedback. You know, obviously they were guaranteed that they were private, confidential conversations, but she was able to give broad level temperature checks, but put in place things for some of the vulnerable workers, because they had 4 or 5 remote and regional offices with a head office in Perth. And so a whole new role has come out of that. I thought that from a HR point of view, I thought you ladies might find that really interesting.
Yes, yeah, that is really interesting. There are so many different ways we can do it, but people are definitely looking at, you know, what's right for us and what works for us, and what are the ways that we can get there to do that. Definitely well-being and thinking about people's psychological health has come to the top of the agenda across a lot of what's been happening. You know, how are people involved and coping through. I don't know if you've read, but apparently that recently there's been a spike in the number of inquiries for divorce and separation.
I am back, ladies, and I can definitely attest to that. So the one good thing that has come out of COVID in my industry is definitely a rise in divorce. The downside, unfortunately, for that is there has been a rise in domestic violence and child abuse referrals within our industry. But certainly from my perspective, it seems people in lockdown have realised they dislike their partners, or words to that effect. And yeah, we have seen a significant rise.
Yeah. And see, that's a risk that needs to be managed in the organisation as well, because if you're measuring somebody's performance and unaware of what's happening behind the scenes, that's just another layer of complexity for that individual to help deal through with it. But here, so with that managing risk and Tuscan, we were just talking through that it's not just about what organisations are doing differently, but it's about the approach that organisations are doing to uncover what they need to do and design for effectively managing risk for them. So in the law, practicing law is, managing risk in culture, capability and performance. These are the types of things to kind of reference to in order to uncover what could we be doing differently within our business as a tool.
Mm. One of the things we implemented a little while ago, Sonia, and it just came about, by its own volition, which was our HR manager previously never did a check-in, so to speak, with staff. She now does that. And I think she does it almost on a daily, if not at least close to a weekly basis across the firm. And she says it's sometimes just a 5-minute call for those that are still remote as opposed to those in the office, because it's definitely a culture of get in as early as you can, get to your desk, do your billable works or hours, and then hopefully get out before the sun sets. Whereas now we're trying to implement more of a cultural shift, of really trying to connect with our staff a little bit better.
Yes, absolutely. And that could be just a phone call, or it could be, we were just talking earlier about the social media channels.
Okay, yeah.
Sharing a meme, or, parents of today, you're happy with the first day of school. These are the types of things I'm hearing back. It's that, it's that simplicity. It's not always about deep and meaningful conversations. It's just a simplicity of connecting.
Yeah.
But sharing that. With the law firm, do you share, with either online during your virtual teams, talking about the successes or the wins as well as the challenges? Do you do that to any extent?
We do on a team level, but not within the firm. We work more as silos, I guess. So from my team's level, we certainly, after a win in court or mediation or whatever the event, we do all meet, and even for those that are remote, we do a Teams and we talk about what's been happening. And I have found that it's been really helpful, particularly during the pandemic, of still keeping that connectivity.
Yes. And is the rest of the, you say you're working in this core areas of expertise, is the rest of the business interested, or they just assume you're doing what you're doing and it's all good?
I think it's the latter. I think we all just assume everyone else is going okay, and we just kind of keep to our own teams in that sense.
Well, and you know what, if that's working, that's great. And I do encourage, like I find in organisations with the partners, or you've got that senior executive team, that it's great to be within your own team. But there's also great value when I got the senior managers together across the disciplines to come together and talk. And it was those times that they realised, oh my gosh, we have a lot more in common, even though we have different disciplines or areas of the business that we look after. We seem to have some common things that are coming through. That's just as valuable. So I think previously it used to be, let's meet down at the bar, or have a coffee downstairs, etc.
Yeah.
Like, so how do we get that cross with the leaders?
Yeah.
Just within the teams? Would be my question. So moving along, thank you for that. So this is, I found this really interesting, building capability through opportunity marketplaces. This research has been released in April by MIT. And that I can share the paper with you as well. But now, you know how the buzzword is about marketplace on Facebook, marketplace for exchange of goods, marketplace for services, marketplace for Go One training. I don't know if you all know about that, but there are literally thousands of marketplaces. Well, it appears that this whole concept has now been taken into the corporate world around capability. So MIT did a research with about 3,900 respondents, and I found it really interesting. for a number of reasons. So it seemed to be consistent across industries. So there's a number of industries across organisations, large and small, that leaders were saying that we do want our workforce to be more flexible and adaptive, and how do we make our employees a lot more valuable? They're all buzzwords. I'm like, okay, all well and good. What does that mean? And I think this is linked back. My sense was when I read the research is that I went, well, this is more around employees feeling like they've got the power to and empowerment to do things for themselves to stay valuable. If it's not within one organisation, it's within another. So that's where they said it's a core success factor is opportunity. Where are the opportunities? Where are the opportunities for the people within your organisation to grow and learn and to actually apply that knowledge? So here are the different things. AI technology. So now there are platforms that actually you can use with your employee data that actually says this is more than a job posting. This is saying you've got short-term projects, you've got assignments, you've got mentors, and people start to express their interest and preferences, and it's like a matching exercise. So it's a platform. There's different ones. One is called Decree, another one is called Gantt. There's a number of them that are available now. They do free trials and things like that, but I found that really interesting. And if you're in a large organization, I guess this is where it's really useful. But even if you didn't have the other, the technology in play, how do we match people to projects and stretch assignments to mentors that aren't always the same people that you tend to choose to do that? So technology is now playing a role in that. So they're not just upskilling or retraining people, but they're connecting people to work on things that are different to what they otherwise work on. When organisations resize, smaller, I guess opportunities do come up, and then sometimes that workload goes up. So I guess there's pros and cons to that. However, in order to kind of get that clear leadership, in order to do that, to connect people to opportunities, there needs to be a really clear vision around how we're going to increase the value of the workforce. That's a really good question to ask the executive teams, the leaders of the teams or divisions. How do we create value within our capability today? What does that look like? And there is no one answer. It really has to be through the discussions with the team, with the individuals doing the work. And it doesn't fit everyone, but it's worth doing it with certain pockets, especially if people that are looking to aspire or career movement. So my question that I raised out of that is, does this mark the end to the traditional career path? People are no longer interested in career paths. I'm interested in the experiences. I'm interested in the opportunities. I want to do something of meaning, that I'm going to grow and do better things, contribute in a different way where I'm growing and learning and getting better at what I do. And I can use that in my next role. What are your thoughts around that? Opportunity marketplaces.
Yeah, for us, we're a manufacturing organisation, and we've got a really key focus that we want to really focus on upskilling our employees into more technical skills, and really looking at areas of our manufacturing environment that we can move to a more technical, what we can do in terms of our machinery and staff, and how that will work for our employees. So looking for people that have got more, I guess, engineering or IT backgrounds, or upskilling them in those areas and giving them those opportunities.
Okay, good. So it's kind of like having that opportunity to actually do it.
Yes.
Yes, and apply their knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes people might feel that they can be retrained in something, but they're not applying that, they don't have the opportunity to actually work in that capacity.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So that's where people are saying the onus is more on, you can do this for me, but I want to have the opportunity to work in that capacity.
Yeah.
Be curious to know how that would work in the law side of professional services?
Sonia, I was just going to jump in then and say I too would be curious to see how that would work, given the nature of the legal industry is, it's all up in our head, so to speak, and then, everyone has access to same computer platforms, laptops, etc. So, yeah, I can't shed any light, unfortunately, on that topic.
Yeah, so they didn't specifically talk about the law industry in the paper, but I thought of professional services, whether it's to work with specific clients. So I was trying to think more broadly to go, do the lawyers want to work with specific clients or a specific group where they want to have impact? Where's that opportunity for them to do that?
I work with 4 different law firms, and they're all very different. As you've said today, often is that the uniqueness of each team and each environment is relevant. But one in particular is really transitioning from not just traditional legal services, but also being more around advisory, getting more involved in the strategic elements of their clients and their clients' organisations. And I think that they're very interested in these kind of collaborative technologies and how to actually work with their clients in helping them transform their clients beyond, the traditional sort of compliance side of legal work. And so it depends on the firm, and I think it depends on what the firm's focus is and how they see themselves adding more value to the client and lawyer relationship, and also considering how they work then with the other clients, trusted advisors, their accountants, their financial advisors. I think there is some relevance there. It's a harder one because of this strong focus on the billable model, because it requires an investment into strategic thinking. Some of my clients just, even the thought of doing a 2-hour strategy planning day that takes them away from a billable time, they'd rather do it on a Saturday, on a weekend. They don't see it as core to their business. So, that end of the spectrum, it's a really tough culture to change.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And that's that mindset and paradigm, right? The research is saying that those that deliberately invest in that get the best out of their workforces. So it is taking them away from their core activity. There is a quote actually from one of the organisations. They're a global IT firm. If I may read out their quote. Practices that support workers. Oh no, not that one. If you're doing your day-to-day job and you're not doing anything else, you're not acquiring any new experiences. Our purpose is to create new opportunities for employees to acquire new experiences and skills. And that's with a global Schneider Electric manufacturing group. They have different arms to their business. So, and I guess this is the conundrum that organisations face, pre-COVID and now, is when you want your team or someone who wants to really excel in a specific area, what do they need to let go of in order for them to create space to go on to the next thing? And if that happens long enough and they don't have that exposure, they tend to get disconnected with the organisation. They may love the people that they work with and then they'll move on to somewhere else. I do want to talk about the example that earlier on today with the law firm around, what are they doing differently? And I was speaking to a colleague of mine in the Northern Territory, his daughter, who's been practicing for about 5 years in the law firm that she's working for. She was told that she now needs to go and promote the organisation. Well, she found this really strange because she goes, well, I'm a lawyer. I'm not your marketing machine. I don't go on and, market about you. But what was really quite interesting, they said they got a company in to help them develop their branding and to say that people seeing you, seeing your face and getting to know you. So I get to know Taskeen. Taskeen's fantastic. She really knows. I've seen, she keeps cropping up about the latest things with family law. She's familiar with me. So that what ends up happening is that the model that they're working on is, yes, you're promoting the firm, but I'm also creating my own brand identity. And that brand identity is that clients are going to follow me wherever I go. Even if you have a restraint clause on me, clients are going to follow me. They're going to get to know me and associate me with the firm. So they're saying that there's this trend about individuals having more of that influence with promoting business leads, getting that connection with new clients, acquiring new clients, or getting more business with existing clients. So there's that strong theme of mutual benefit and success. So she, in the end, what happened was she got on board with it, and she ended up getting more clients and more leads, and she was really quite surprised. They did set her up, and there was all the training and technology and support for them to do it, and now she regularly promotes on various channels, media channels, social media channels, about the expertise or a latest issue that's come up. And it's worked to the benefit of the law firm. But her first response was, this is not what I'm meant to be doing. But they found that it was contributed to increasing their billable hours and increasing their clients. Taskeen, does that sound like something that your law firm might do?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's definitely a model that we're encouraging across the board from junior solicitors when they start. I, in January, hired a new junior lawyer, and right from the outset, I was saying to her, it's not also about building, it's not only about building a profile for the firm, but it's about you building your own brand, because you may not stay with me forever. And of course she said, oh yes, I would. And I went, yeah, right. You're, in your early 20s. I know you're going to leave me soon. But yeah, going out and putting in those hard yards so that she does develop her own brand, and she can take that, and people, as you say, are going to go, oh yes, I know Alana, yes, I've met her a couple of times, go to her. That kind of word of mouth advertising or marketing is still relevant, I think.
And it needs the resources for the firm to do that successfully. Because you don't graduate with that stuff. Nobody trains with it.
No.
Maybe the next generation are more familiar with it, but they still need the coaching and training and resources in order to do it. So there's an investment on that part to be able to do it. So you could call that an opportunity. It's connecting a mutual benefit, just not using that type of technology or platform. But again, it's looking, how do we build the capability of the firm through the individuals and increasing the value of those employees. So I kind of maybe, took that as an example with it. Any other comments, Leah or Nicole?
No extra comments from me, thank you.
Leah's had to leave too. She did apologise. She's been called into a meeting.
Sure. Well, I guess now I really just need to wrap it up. It's, share the latest thinking around the high value workforce, about managing risk and design principles. I'm curious to hear from you, what your key takeaways are from today's discussion.
For me, Sonia, I think those 5 factors you identified earlier have been really helpful. It's something that I really want to reflect upon, and I wouldn't mind, I know you said, Lynn, that you're going to put on the website or other socials, if you like, the today's slideshow, but I wouldn't mind, Sonia, if you could send us the link to that research. I'd greatly appreciate reading that. I don't know if that's something that you can do, Lynn or Sonia.
Yes, I'm absolutely happy to share. It's public information, not mine, but I thought it was really useful. And if you'd like to chat more about it and just brainstorm it out, happy to.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, same for me. I thought those 5 principles were great, and I'd really like to see where I can utilise those and share them with our executive group as well.
Yeah, they are. It's, yeah, shaping and making it tangible for them too. How do we use it?
Yes.
Well,
Certainly something for me is I realised with my own team, you know, I've got a team that work really hard to get things done, and as soon as we finish one thing, and I'm sure you'll all appreciate that this is what we do, is that the next thing's already banked up and we're on to that, the next project, the next client deliverable, the next whatever it is. And we quite often really don't take the time out to reflect on what we've achieved and to celebrate. It's, you know, a few things that have been shared today have really kind of, I've been thinking about that in terms of my role as a leader, taking that time out to really recognise, you know, that, you know, we've got a team of absolute superstars, and I so often are very public in, you know, what we're achieving in terms of my own marketing for the brand, but not always taking the time out to acknowledge each of the individuals, and maybe even doing something little, you know, maybe even, you know, just getting a bunch of flowers, because we're all so separate now, we're all working remotely. So I'm going to go away and just think about, you know, what I can do with my own team and acknowledging them and their gifts that they bring. So thank you.
great. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been great to have an intimate group together today with the discussion. And if there's anything that I can help you with, please feel free to contact me. Just even if you want to bounce ideas, explore things, or how you could run, you know, like a little virtual online collaboration with your team to explore some ideas or test out a few things that you're trying to tackle, please feel free to call me. I'm quite happy. It's all part of being part of the Businesswomen Australia community. So thank you.
Thanks, Sonia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. That was brilliant. Thank you so much.